to move on to this question of why are people getting sicker, and why are we seeing, more and more illnesses, some real, some just made up by pharmaceutical companies to sell you nonsense. 924 is not a thing, okay? Let me just say that. I have noticed that, and perhaps you guys have too, that when you were a kid, that in your classes there was maybe one kid who was a little bit off, but by and large everybody else was cool. Nowadays, something like 30% of kids are on medication. People have, fibromyalgia and this and that. And I do think that these ailments, I'm not going to call them diseases, I do think these ailments are real, but the question is, where are they coming from? How many of you, can I see a show of hands, saw Food Inc.? Okay. For those of you who have not seen it, it streams on Netflix. Go home and watch it. One of the things that really struck me in that documentary was they talked about the yield in corn per acre that has happened over the last 100 years. And I don't remember, unfortunately, I don't have Brenda's brain, so I don't remember the exact numbers in terms of how many bushels they used to get from an acre at the beginning of the 20th century versus the latter end of it. But the yield, I think, had at least tripled. So think about this, ladies and gentlemen. You still have the same amount of dirt with, X amount of minerals and, nitrogen and whatever else in that dirt. But now you are growing 3 times as many plants out of it. That means that those plants themselves are going to be nutrient deficient. Okay? And they make them look pretty by jazzing them up with petrochemical fertilizers to make them grow and look nice and big, but they are empty in terms of their calories. Then what do? They turn around and take this corn and feed it to farm animals. You see, people think that when they're eating, beef or chicken, that they're eating the beef and chicken that their ancestors from several hundred years ago ate. No, those animals were actually roaming in the environment, actually eating real plants, getting adequate nutrition. You are now eating animals that have been fed nutrient-depleted corn, okay? It gets worse than that. These animals are also given what's called growth-enhancing technology, which are a series of steroid implants and other hormones and chemicals to make them grow faster. Because, of course, the faster and more cheaply you get an animal to market weight, the better your profit margin. So people are eating animals whose tissues are loaded with a bunch of synthetic hormones and chemicals and that are at baseline nutrient depleted. And I think that is showing up in our bodies by the fact that our bodies are screaming out in agony for the micronutrients and even macronutrients that they're missing because they are eating what is essentially depleted garbage. And it's showing up in 1,000 different ways. That is my opinion. I don't have proof of that, but that's the best way I can put this together.
Yeah, it's good. I do understand why we're here, but I wonder if I might expand the view. There's a great answer, but it's not all about only food, of course. And I have 5 children, and so I've got kids in the sort of the millennial group, and unbelievable amounts of mental anguish in that group. And they're concerned about a planet in peril. They're concerned about our divisive politics and principles of our democracy. They're facing existential threats, and that's affecting them. They've been born into an uncontrolled experiment involving the internet and social media. Everything about the nature of communication and human interaction has changed. I think all of that is part of the mix. What's happening above the neck is relevant to everything below. And then I wanted to throw in an anecdote, because I agree with everything you said, Milton. But the youngest of my 5 kids is my son, and there's an interesting anecdote about Gabe from many years ago. I was giving a talk at Dartmouth. Gabe was 5 at the time. He's now turning 21. And he got restless during my talk. He was driving my wife crazy, and my remedy was to propose that he stop torturing his mother, run up the stairs, out the door, along the corridor, in the other door, down the stairs, and come back to his seat and sit still, stop fidgeting. So he did that, and I kept talking. He came back, sat down, gave me a sort of cheeky, in-your-face look, Dad, and took off again. And when he came around the second time, he didn't sit down. He just waved and kept going, and 2 kids got up and took off after him. And then when the 3 of them came around, basically every kid in the audience under the age of 12, and people were there with their families, took off. So we now have 30 kids running laps around the audience. A program was born that day. We called it ABC for Fitness, Activity Burst in the Classroom. We developed this at the Prevention Research Center. We studied it. We made it freely available. It's in thousands and thousands of schools. And the idea is you could basically integrate bouts of controlled physical activity throughout the school day, have it add up to 30 minutes, make the kids better behaved, better learners, and healthier into the bargain. But in the aftermath of that experience with my son, and all the years of studying and deploying that program, I developed a rant. The proper remedy for rambunctiousness in children is recess, damn it, not Ritalin. We take naturally rambunctious kids, bolt them to chairs all day long so they can grow up to become adults. We can't get off couches with crowbars, and when they complain about it, we medicate them. That's horribly wrong.
You're absolutely right. I was horrified to learn that kids don't have recess anymore. I'm like, are you kidding me? We lived for recess when I was in school.